Hey guys, OG Albino here, bringing you guys our Smogon Sword and Shield Draft League tournament run. Yes, if you guys haven't checked these out so far, we've done one for Scarlet and Violet, the kickoff tournament. We did one for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and now it's time to round it off with a Swish tournament before like the midsummer, Scarlet and Violet like classic that they're doing and things like that. So we've gone through all the generations of draft at this point. I wanted to upload my next round. Go check out those other videos if you haven't done so already. And if you guys are excited for our Sword and Shield run, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 3,000 subs, and it would help a ton if you wanted to go ahead and sub and help us reach that goal. Also, there's a little join button down there if you want to join, become a channel member. That helps me out immensely too. There's a lot of really cool perks involved with and things like that. But yeah, with that being said, we can kind of jump into it. I wanted to showcase my Sword and Shield run. Sword and Shield is probably my second favorite generation of Draft League, behind Usum. But I do think that Sword and Shield is the most balanced generation and the most solved generation. That being said, there's some pretty interesting allows this tournament, in the first of which being a Speed Boost Blaziken, which we had to draft first. I'm going to go over my team really quick. This Pokemon, especially in an 8-mon format where you cannot fit as many things tightly compacted onto a team, and a lot of things have to like roll compress and kind of cover a bunch of things, Speed Boost Blaziken seems very overwhelming. It's typically banned in Draft League, and for good reason, and I think especially in 8-mon, this one is going to be absolutely busted. I don't remember what pick we had in the draft. It might have been first. It was pretty high up, but we were able to snag a Speed Boost Blaziken. This thing with its dual stab of fighting and fire being pretty much unresisted alongside great coverage like Knockoff and Earthquake, getting access to U-Turn, Vacuum Wave for priority if we for some reason need it, and that mixed attacking capability with 120 attack and 110 special attack. This Pokemon is a phenomenal breaker or endgame win con. We can either rock out with Swords Dance sets or like Protect Life Orb sets just to clean through teams and, you know, pick a KO whenever we come in. And I'm really excited to use this Pokemon, and our whole team and game plan is going to be centered around getting in Blaziken and doing some damage. So that's what we're going to do. Next up, I grabbed the GOAT of Swish, a Pokemon that took a big hit in Scarlet and Violet, partly because of how good he was in Sword and Shield, and that's going to be Big Rillaboom, another starter that we're using with its hidden ability in Grassy Surge. This Pokemon with Grassy Glide in conjunction with Knockoff and U-Turn and strong Wood Hammers is really, really incredible. We also have Superpower and High Horsepower still in this generation, allowing us to hit those, pesky grass resist pretty darn hard, like the, Steel and Fire types of the world, which is great. We can Swords Dance or Bulk Up. I love Choice Band variants, but I especially love Assault Vest Rillaboom, and this Pokemon's going to be incredible at really bullying down those waters. Those waters, sorry, that Blaziken does not appreciate at all. It's also going to grab free U-turns into those fire types and those, steel types, so we can get in our Blaziken and do some damn damage. So hopefully Rillaboom is like the perfect partner for Blaziken. It's also going to weaken Earthquakes, maybe giving us a setup opportunity or two or something of the sorts. So yeah, I think it's a great pairing overall. I really do like Rillaboom a lot with Blaziken. I think it's just about as good as it can get when you come back on the wheel. In round 3, we got a Pokemon that I think lasted a little bit too long, I'll be honest, and that's going to be Zeraora, one of my favorite Pokemon to use in the Draft League format, especially in Generation 8. I spammed this thing to the ends of the earth. This thing is really, really obnoxious. Gives us incredible speed in 143, so this on top of Blaziken Speed Boost is going to make our team blazingly fast, incredibly fast, allowing us to knock off items, close combat and Plasma Fist and Play Rough for, great coverage offensively, as well as rock out with really annoying sub-toxic sets and things of the sort. Like, this Pokemon can be really obnoxious and just whittling and chipping things down in order for the rest of our team to come in and do some damage, which is awesome. We can also bulk up, we can also Volt Switch. We also have a very, very fast taunt on this thing. This thing is very versatile and very good. Love me some Zera, another one that's great with an AV potentially too, but Boots are going to be its bread and butter most of the games. Boots or Band, or maybe even a Life Orb here and there. We can go Mix, Physical Special, we can go Calm Mind. We have Grass Knot for grounds, which is great in our terrain. We weaken Earthquakes into ourselves, which is awesome, great as well for like bulk up variants and things of the sort. But yeah, this Pokemon's incredible. I'm really excited to use Zera. It's a Pokemon I'm very comfortable with using and I've used a lot in the past. So, and again, fits well with Blaziken in the sense that it really, really bullies the things that Blaziken doesn't like, and Blaziken bullies the things it doesn't like the grasses and things like that of the world. I can kind of switch it on Zeraora pretty freely. Then, I want to grab my Fairy and my Steel. We're going to kind of have to roll compress because we grabbed a lot of top-end heavy offense at the beginning. So I wanted to grab my Steel, I wanted to grab my Fairy, and I really wanted to grab some hazards. So we got Klefki right here. Incredible Spiker, incredible status spreader with Thunder Wave. It sets up screens for our Hyper Offense core at the top, and Zera, Rillaboom, and Blaziken, and Blaziken a lot of time kind of struggles setting up with its mediocre bulk. Not with screens though, which is going to be very, very awesome. It really appreciates grassy terrain too, giving it that pseudo recovery alongside our leftovers potentially and things like that. You can run with Cheesy Calm Mind, Iron Defense, Stored power sets pretty freely. This Pokemon, it's a Pokemon we've used in Generation 9 a lot. I didn't use a lot in prior generations, but I'm excited to try in Gen 8, where it functions pretty much the same, except now it has access to Toxic again. So we can rock it with cool, Toxic variants and things like that to status things in another way, which is awesome. Speaking of Toxic, I needed that grounded poison, guys, so we had to grab Big Qwilfish. This also gave me a water. This also gave me a fighting resist, which I did not have a fighting resist up to this point, and that's pretty darn scary. I want to be able to switch into good offensive fightings, especially in Sword and Shield. There's some pretty scary ones out there. This Pokemon can rock out with, the standard Intimidate sets, but who knows, if we get a Swift Swim matchup, we can rock out with, a Swift Swim set. It's not going to happen as much something like Toad, like we did last tour in our Scarlet and Violet, our Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, but still a very viable option. Poison Point plus Rocky Helmet could also be really annoying and whittling things down, or just Rocky Helmet into him could be great. Really chipping things and putting them in range. We set up spikes as well. We set up T-Spikes. We absorb T-Spikes for the rest of our team, which hates them right now, so we're not forcing into boots on everything. So, yeah, I really like this core. I think it's pretty awesome. Or I really like this Pokemon. I think it's pretty awesome. It's a nice little pivot for our offense, and can kind of facilitate it pretty darn well. Then we have Azelf, Big Azelf, one of my favorite Pokemon. Again, we have a very, very hyper-offensive team here that kind of predicates itself on being offensive, keeping up momentum. This is our only rocker on the team, actually, in general, which is a bit of a downside, but it is a very good rocker due to its speed tier. It has incredible coverage. I mean, I'm not even going to read it off. Look at this thing's type coverage. It is absolutely phenomenal. The only thing it's missing is Ice Beam instead of Ice Punch, or both would be cool. But other than that, I mean, this Pokemon really just has an insane move pool. And great utility outside of those Scarf sets. We can go with Lead Taunt, Sash, Boom sets. We can go with Nasty Plot variants. I love me some Nasty Azelf. We can find the opportunity. And plus we have the screens to let Azelf set up and go crazy if we want. It gets access to knockoff, and it can even, just lead and boom and take something out. There's so many things it could do. Really fast taunt, really fast encore as well. So there's some really cool stuff that Azelf can do, and I'm really excited to use it this tournament. It's a Pokemon I've used very well in the past, and I'm super comfortable with, and I think it's going to be cool to see it shine. Now, with these kind of hyper-offensive teams, I like having decent pivots to get in and out and facilitate their switch-ins. Audino's going to kind of do that for us. It also gives us a ghost immunity, and right now, especially in Scarlet or Sword and Shield, we want to make sure that we have a good ghost immunity, especially being that our Dark that we're going to get next round for our final pick isn't the most reliable in it, and we're playing in a generation where ghost types were at their absolute peak and highest in usage and popularity, and Audino checks those very well. Again, it's a great Wish Passer, which can keep things like Klefki and Qwilfish healthy, making them a little bit more sturdy of a defensive backbone. Definitely not the sturdiest, but a little bit more sturdy. We set up Encores, we can knock items off, we can Toxic and Thunder Wave things. Really, we're here to just be a nuisance and Wish and then regen out. The best ability in the game for a damn reason. So that's obviously going to be great. I wish I had some access to Teleport or Baton Pass or something of the sorts, but you can't have everything. It's really here to knock, wish, toxic, encore. Usually it's going to be some combination of moves that you run, maybe, an Ice Beam here or there, or a Heal Bell or something like that. And also gives us a Cleric, which is awesome. If Rillaboom has to switch it on a water type, it gets burned by Scald. Then, lastly, we have Big Guzzingtons, another Pokemon that appreciates the wish support that Audino gives, especially if we EV it correctly and put it as defense and Spadef opposed to that HP, because that HP stat, it's obviously massive. This thing is incredible with an Assault Vest. It's very good with Resist Berries as well. I've even seen Band or Specs Guzzlord's pop off. It's a Pokemon that's been used very well by people in the past as a low tier threat. I know Addison or Aquarius used Guzzlord a lot last generation, and she's definitely a firm Guzzingtons believer. I am too. I've really enjoyed it. And I don't know if you guys remember, but this team right here has a lot of similar pieces to one of our old Gen 8 teams from a league called the ICP, where we had Blaziken, so not Speed Boost, but we also had Zeraora. I believe we had Audino on that team, I want to say. And I know we had Guzzlord on that team as well. Maybe Azelf. I don't think we had Azelf on that team, but it was a really fun team that I did really well with, and this is kind of just a better version of that. So I'm hoping this team does well in the tournament. And yeah, that being said, we could jump into our first battle of pools. Pools. Alright, first game of pools, we're going up against a guy named Tetris. They have a pretty scary rain team. We see Big Fish Dracovish alongside Dreadnought to abuse that Rain with the Pelipper. Ferrothorn is going to be a great option on Rain teams, obviously avoiding those fire moves that might want to come out against it, or weakening them, I guess, not avoiding them. And then Koko, which is always strong under Rain and can force some very, very scary situations and turns and things like that. It's a great U-turn mon into those Rain abusers, as well as the ground types that might be forced in and things of the sort. So we're going to have to be very careful about how we deal with this. Let me show you the team that we ended up rocking out with in our first pool game. First up is going to be Blaziken. This Pokemon goes absolutely buck wild. You see no fire move, but that's completely fine. We don't need it. Between Close Combat, Thunder Punch, Protect to gain some speed, and then Earthquake, this thing has the potential to kill every Pokemon on my opponent's team that they showed. Minus Resist Berries, you're outspeeding me with a Scarf, so as long as I don't play like an idiot with my Blaziken, I should be, pretty okay here, which is awesome. Like I said, this thing is going to absolutely nuke through. Protect is also good for stalling rain turns as well as being faster than those rain threats once we start getting Protects up and things like that, which is obviously great. It's also something after Protect we can be faster than a Dracovish, which is awesome. Then we have Rillaboom. This thing's going to be pretty offensive, but it is going to be Rocky Helmet, mostly due to the fact that this is going to be my main Crocodile switch-in. I feel like I'm going to get knocked off anyway, so getting that little bit of chip damage can go a long way for something like Zeraora in the back to nuke it, or even a Chople Crook for my Blaziken to nuke it, which is awesome. Grassy Glide is great for revenging a lot of these scary rain threats, things like the Dreadnought, things like the Koko, things like the Dracovish. Don't appreciate Grassy Glide at all. Knockoff is to get rid of items, and then Superpower is to, pick off a weakened Ferrothorn. It has to be pretty weakened, but we can pick it off nonetheless. And then we have aforementioned Zeraora with Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Close Combat, and Toxic. Toxic is in like a Koko that wants to call Mines on me. Knockoff, Close Combat, and Plasma Fist hits everything else very hard. We spread Nox early game, and then we can kind of just click Close Combat, honestly. This thing functions as a fighting type. If only Terra was in the game, because it'd be Terra fighting Zeraora and it'd go crazy. But yeah, pretty cool mod this game. Then we have Azelf. We are Scarf this week. We have Psyshock, U-Turn, Fire Blast, and Dazzling game. We have the ability to go Modest in this game, which is also really good. Depending on what's left, this thing can kind of just click a button. It's a great revenge killer as well. Dazzling Gleam, Modest D-Gleam to something like a Dracovish Crocodile in the back is going to be awesome. Fire Blast is still really strong against Ferrothorn, even in the rain, because we're a Modest Azelf with 125 special attack. Psyshock is going to be a great way of revenging like a Calm Mind to that Koko, which really, really scared me with the team that I ended up bringing. So I want to make sure I had viable means of revenging Koko after a little bit of chip, and that's what Azelf is here for. Then we have a Rocky Helmet, Quillfish, we're Scald, Sludge Bomb, Spikes, and Taunt. We are Max Fistef. This is our Dracovish pivot. It is here to get up Spikes and be a nuisance against Dracovish. We Scald, Beta Burn on the Ferrothorn. It can't really touch us, especially when we taunt it. It's not going to be able to set up Spikes, Leech Seed, or Rocks in our face, which is also really, really clutch. And as the spikes kind of go down, this team is going to get whittled very fast unless the entire squad is rocking out with boots. And realistically, the only one that can afford boots is going to be Koko, and Koko's going to get knocked off by Zeraora. It's very, very possible that it gets knocked off by Zeraora. Sludge Bomb is a way to not be completely passive against a weird sub Dracovish, because between that, subbing, Helmet, and then Sludge Bomb breaking subs after 2, we should be okay against. I'm not super worried about it in that regard. Then we have our Ardino. We're rocking out with the heavy duty boots, Regen, Knockoff, Wish, Encore, and Toxic. Encore is to make it to where this thing, it's going to be our main pivot into something like Koko. We're going to pivot it on it. If it wants to set up a Calm Mind or a Substitute or something like that, we can't Encore it in. It doesn't really have the move slots to be Taunt Calm Mind in this matchup, in my opinion, because then it's missing Roost, because it needs dual stabs in this game. And even then, it might not even be Calm Mind, because we have things like Rillaboom, we have things like, Blaziken, but I wanted a way of potentially stopping it in an endgame. Encore is also really nice for things like Dreadnought, trying to set up a Swords Dance. It can't Shell Smash this gen, but it can Swords Dance in our face in the rain, and that's scary. Same thing if the Dracovish is a subvariant. I can Encore it in, get out, put myself in a good spot. Wish to keep everything healthy, things like the Quillfish, which is obviously very, very nice. And Toxic to spread some status and things like that. Just a good Koko pivot, in case it's like a U-turn variant, because we can kind of get in and take the U-turn, then just soak it up and switch out, which is awesome. Good old regen button. Alright, that being said, we can go ahead and jump on into this one. We are going to lead off with our Blaziken. Reason being is because it really leads well into everything minus Dracovish. Something like a Koko, I can just protect. Something like a Ferrothorn, I can just protect to see what he wants to go for. Something like a Dreadnought, I can just switch out or click Close Combat if, depending on rolls. Same thing with Pelipper, same thing with Crook. We see a Crook lead and we see that it's Moxie. Immediately in my head, I'm thinking, okay, there's 3 possibilities, right? I always protect here. He's not going to set up rocks in my face because it's a psychopath play. He is either Scarf, Sash, or Chopple. So I need to be very careful about how I deal with this. A Scarf Crook is a good bring because it will outspeed a +1 Blaziken, which is, you know, very scary for his team right now. So I had to be very careful. Plus my team can be pretty weak to these moves. So he's going to click Earthquake here, not have horsepower. And in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. Free Rillaboom pivot. No matter what, I have to be careful about this thing being one of those 3 items. I can't lose my Blaziken this early. I'm going to go Rillaboom right here as he does reveal the knockoff. He's going to get hit by the helmet here. And you're going to see this thing is actually just leftovers, which was very interesting to see him just kind of throw that Pokemon away immediately. Close Combat would rock this thing to the next dimension, but it's okay. This is what Rillaboom was here for. It was to switch in, figure out what this thing wanted to do, and kind of adjust accordingly. I am going to just U-turn here because I can just go into Blaziken afterwards. I can go into Zeraora if he wants to stay in. Like, there's very, very many options that I could do. Plus, if this Ferrothorn wants to come out, it's back out into free Blaziken, which I am going to do right here. I'm going to get out into my Blaziken. I'm just going to click Close Combat, because look at the Close Combat resist on this team. It's Koko Pelipper, and watch this. Not a resist. This Pokemon's broken. And because he switched hard in on me, I'm going to get my speed boost here. And now, even if this is like a random Scarf Koko, I can go ahead and click Protect. Thunder's going to drop. That's fine with me. And now from here, I can just click Earthquake and knock this thing out. I knocked out Shuka from there based on his the damage that Close Combat did as well. So we're able to pick off the Koko immediately, which is awesome. Dragovich is going to come out. In case this is like a sub variant, I am just going to pivot right into Qwilfish. I take absolutely nothing from that Fishious Rend, which is awesome. And I believe I just set up a spike in this thing's face because I'm not super worried about what it wants to do. It's going to whittle itself down if it wants to attack me, so I'm not super worried in that regard. Ice Beam is going to come out against my Zera right here as I pivot into Qwilfish. Probably expecting Rillaboom, but I'm not sure why Ice Beam came. Maybe for Guzz in general, and there was just no Hurricane on the set, or maybe just because of the neutral move into Zeraora. I have no idea, to be completely honest, but I do get into my Zeraora right here. It takes a crit, but that's not too big of a deal. In my head, I'm like, okay, very free knockoff. Either something like the Ferrothorn wants to come out, and then I can knock into CC. Same thing with the Crocodile, and then if I knock off Dragovish's Scarf, I'm in a good spot, and Dreadnought can't come in. So there's really not a downside to clicking Knock here, as my opponent likes to actually stay in Ice Beam. There's Scarf and, like, Max Timid, because I'm not Max Speed Zera, and, like, Max Speed Zera would outspeed the shit out of a Scarf Pelipper. So I'm gonna knock off this thing's Scarf. It's gonna take a ridiculous amount of damage. And this next turn, I'm kind of, like, caught, because I'm like, oh, man, well, they're just staying in. I should just attack what's in front of me at this point, as they are gonna pivot Crocodile this time. If I would have knocked this thing off, you'll see right here, after leftovers, too, especially, my Close Combat this next turn would have knocked this out, guaranteed. Unfortunately, we are going to go down here, but chipping down this Crocodile is also great for a Psyshock endgame. Once this Ferrothorn is down, I can kind of just click Psyshock with my Azelf, or at least it's there's no immunities anymore to it, which is awesome. I'm going to go into my Azelf now, because it's a very free U-turn. I'm going to be able to pick off this Crocodile, and then kind of reset and get into whatever I want, which is going to be my Blaziken immediately. Pelipper is going to come out next. I'm just going to click Thunder Punch. I got no reason to play around. I don't want to let it roost and be like, I don't know, it really doesn't matter. I know I outspeed it because I knocked off its Scarf. Dragovich is going to come out, and I knew that I would be forced out, you know, by this thing anyways, because I don't guarantee kill it from here, as it is going to go ahead and click Fishious Rend, and in the rain, it will 2-hit KO my Qwilfish, but these 2 turns of Rocky Helmet Chip basically seal this Dragovish's fate. I can get back out into my Blaziken now, click Protect, and like I said, I outspeed Scarf Dragovich at +1 speed, so I can just come in and click Close Combat right here, and this is also going to stall out the rest of the rain turns, which is really, really nice. I'm going to go ahead, take this thing down right here. Dreadnought's going to come out. I don't guarantee kill this thing from full, so I pivot into Audino on like a potential, you know, Swords Dance or something of the sorts. As right here, they are going to Swords Dance on me switching into my Audino. This just kind of, it didn't give me better diff necessarily. Yeah, it didn't end up giving me better diff because of the way the game played out, but I was trying to shooting for a little bit better of diff. Right here, as Gyro Ball's going to come out into my Azelf. I'm not super worried at this point, though, because I can kind of just click Fire Blast right here, knock this guy out. Then I can just pivot out into my Audino. I know that I always have my Rillaboom in the back, too. I just have to be careful about how I position it. And then from here, I'm just going to be able to click Encore, I believe. Yeah, as Megahorn is going to come out on my Choke into Rillaboom. But again, that's fine. We timed it to where Train goes down, which means Train goes back up. This next turn, we're going to be able to click Grassy Glide and take home a 3-0 dub. So I kind of danced a little bit to try and see if I could, you know, squeeze myself some differential, but it didn't end up, you know, going that way. But I felt pretty comfortable and in control that whole game, and the team ended up functioning well, which is really cool. So, yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into our next game. Alrighty, guys, game 2 of pools. We're going up against Death Dragon, and what an ominous name from an ominous team. We have the Tapu Lele, Laceflon, Latios, the Aegislash, Gastrodon, and Sceptile pretty hyper offensive just like ours, but I think our pivots are just a little bit better than his pivots into our team. We can kind of show you what we're rocking with this week. First up, I have Blaziken. Blaziken cooks his team again. Flare Blitz Close Combat just kills every single Pokemon. Outside of Blacephalon, which gets rocked by a knockoff, and same thing with Latios. So really, our dual stats plus knock is like perfect coverage in this game. Protects us to stall out turns, gains some speed boost, get faster than Scarfers after a little bit, and things like that. Pokemon does really well overall. Then we have an Assault Vest Rillaboom, where Grassy Glide, Knockoff, U-Turn, and Woodhammer. Really, the biggest threat to my team is Lele, and this can at least pivot in, get rid of the Psychic Terrain, and kind of U-turn around, give us some good, momentum and, turns to click some moves. It's honestly really good offensively, too. Grassy Glide and Knockoff hits everything really hard, and then we have U-turn for the Sceptile, which we can always U-turn out on pretty freely. So this Pokemon is very, very strong in this matchup offensively, and is a good pivot into some things. Then we have Zera. We are Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Substitute, and Toxic. You get off of Sub-Toxic and really whittle down things like Sceptile, things like the Gastron, and then Plasma Fist Knockoff hits everything else really hard. And honestly, Sub isn't just for Sub-Toxic. It's if we can force a switch, get behind a Sub, outspeed a Scarfer, and go to work, that's obviously great for us. So, yeah, definitely a really good Pokemon in this game. And we have Big Guzzlord here, rocking out with Chople Berry, where Knockoff, Heavy Slam, Earthquake, and Protect. Protect is pretty interesting. It's mostly here for the Aegislash to force it into Blade form so we can nuke it with a Knockoff or an Earthquake. It's going to be our main Aegislash check in order to, be able to switch in on it. Clicking any stabs or close combat will be able to take it really well and just blow it up afterwards. And even without any Spadef, this is a very good Blacephalon check. There's not much that Pokemon can do to us, really. It also soft checks things like Sceptile, potentially. And, it's really hard for my opponent to switch into, so Guzzington actually goes pretty crazy here. We got a Spadef Audino. It really pivots into all of the special attackers. Scarf Lele's, Blacephalons, and Latios very well. We can lock them into moves with Encore, knock off items, and then, Heal Bell off some burns potentially, and things like that on our Rillaboom or our, what do you call it? I'm blanking, Guzzlord, which is nice. And then we have our Quillfish for Rocky Helmet with Poison Jabs, Spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Liquidation. This is Max Fist F. It's actually our pivot into the Sceptile, which is pretty funny, because that thing with the Swords Dance can get pretty out of hand pretty fast. Other than that, we're here to just set up Spikes and T-Spikes. There's no Grounded Poison on this team, too, so if we can get up a T-Spike, we don't even have to click Toxic with our Zera Aura, and we're in a pretty good spot there. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into the game itself. We are going to go ahead and lead off with our Blaziken into Lele. This scares me a little bit, makes me think this is going to be Scarf, but it's actually going to be a Psychic Seed set. I click Protect here to make sure I'm faster. Moonblast comes out, and then I look at the Calc and I'm like, man, max HP Lele dies to Flare Blitz from full. I'm clicking it. I don't have great long-term switches to this, and I don't need my Blaziken to win, so why don't we just click a button here? There's really no reason not to. It's right here. I'm just going to click Flare Blitz, and I nuke the Lele. So even max HP died to that, so it wasn't like a crazy roll. I get very chipped down because of that, but, we're in a pretty good spot overall. I click Protect on this Gastron. This is Gen 8, remember, so it does not get spikes or rocks, so I'm not really wasting any turns doing that. It goes for a Surf. I pivot into my Rillaboom here, showing that it's not Scald, which is awesome. For some reason, it's not Scald. And then Earth Bar is going to come out. Do nothing. I think I just go ahead and click a big, knockoff here, expecting potentially a Latios and Aegislash, but Sceptile actually comes out. It goes ahead and gets its Unburdened proc with the Seed. I click U-turn, do 60, and this seems scary, but I actually do guaranteed live a +1 Leaf Blade crit in terrain with Fizdef Quillfish. I do go ahead and live that hit right there. I'm going to be able to Poison Jab, knock out the Sceptile. Pretty sleek stuff. Now, I don't really get to set up any spikes or anything of the sort, but it's fine. Aegislash is going to come out, click Swords Dance in my, face right here, as I do go ahead and click Earthquake here on another Swords Dance. The reason I clicked Earthquake instead of Knockoff is in case it was King Shield, and then I wanted to drop my attack and get off a bunch of Swords Dances and things like that, especially if it was leftovers, which it is. But thankfully, it does just ST again. This next turn, I am going to click Protect because I am slower than this thing. I guaranteed live a close combat from here, and if they want to stay in and attack me right here with this Iron Head, I'll be able to blow them up after with an Earthquake. So I do go ahead and click an Earthquake again. Again, I probably should just click Knockoff there, but in case it was some kind of King Shield set, I wanted to be careful. I don't know it's set just yet, and I'm not super worried about Latios pivoting in right now, at least. I go into my Audino here on a Dragon Pulse. It only does 34, which is definitely really nice. I can go ahead and just click Encore here, see what this thing wants to click. Is it goes ahead and clicks an Aura Sphere. based on that damage, it's looking like it's Soldew because Dragon Pulse is doing as much as the Aura Sphere. So that's good information to know. I'm going to be able to pivot out. I go into my Zeraora because it's a pretty darn free knockoff or Toxic on his team. There's not really much wants to switch in. I click Toxic expecting the Gastrodon, but he actually just stays in locked to Aura Sphere. But I'm just going to be able to knock off this next turn, which is, again, completely fine. I do a clean 80%, knock off that aforementioned Soldew, take that Aura Sphere with ease, and then I'm just going to be able to click it once again. No problem at all. So we knock out the Latios here, which is obviously very, very nice for me. Only 3 Pokemon left, so we're looking at a pretty commanding position. Gastrodon's going to come out. I'm just going to click Toxic on it, because once this thing gets chipped down, my Blaziken literally just wins the game, and there's not much my opponent can do about it. Rillaboom's going to come out next. I'm going to expect to pivot into Aegislash because of the fact that if this thing dies, then again, he loses to Blaziken, but he does end up staying in here, not losing his item because of Sticky Hold. Ice Beam only does 38, which is fine. And then the next turn, I believe I do just click Grassy Glide, because there's no reason not to, because he looks like he's reserved to, you know, sack off the Gastro, unfortunately, there. So, down, or fortunately for me, down 8 goes. I go out in my Audino, because I don't want to give this thing Beast Boost if I don't need to. I know I take 2 Scarf hits, so if it's not Scarf, it'll do more, and then I'll be able to revenge it afterwards, after Protect with Blaziken. So, I knew that that pivot was always going to be safe. Next up, Aegislash is going to come out. I believe I do just click Wish here. And again, I can just go back out into Big Guzzingtons pretty darn freely. I get more health than I came back in with because of the leftovers in Terrain. So that Rillaboom really, really coming up clutch. Ironhead, not going to do much into me right here, which is awesome. And thankfully, the Terrain is going to end at a perfect time, as I am just going to click Earthquake, knock out this Aegislash from 93 because it's in Blade form, get the attack boost, then Blacephalon's going to come out. I can just click a very free knockoff, take nothing from Flamethrower, and secure a nice 5-0 victory. And yeah, that basically guaranteed us brackets, but the game after this never ended up happening. Our opponent kind of just went rogue. He went off the face of the earth. He played no pool games, actually, like out of anybody. So we were able to move on with a 3-0 record, get a bye round 1. So I didn't play in this tournament for like 3 weeks straight. It felt like it was pretty crazy because I played these games pretty early in the pool of things. So I played these first 2 games really early, didn't play again for another 3 weeks. But then we finally got our last matchup. Let's jump into that. Alrighty, guys, here we are with our top, I don't know if it was top 64 or top 128. I know it was our first round that we played because we got that bye, but we're playing against Sage here. Very scary team. We have Garchomp, which is debatably a top 5 Pokemon in Sword and Shield format, Galar Slowbro, or Slowking, Celesteela, Silvally, which can be a bunch of different types, and then some big threats like Comfey, which really scared me with a Calm Mind variant, and a Suicune, which can always get out of hand really fast if you're not properly prepared for it. There's never a matchup where Suicune pre-Gen 9 was ever going to be, you know, an easy task to take on. Team, we're rocking out with this again. We have just a Protect 3 attacks Blaziken. I know a lot of times people think like, oh man, I feel like you should have brought in, you know, Swords Dance or something of the sort. I get that, but really this thing has enough breaking power on its own to where it just kills things with Life Orb, and it's hard to set up those, you know, Swords Dance opportunities, especially into things like Garchomp. So I like the Adamant Life Orb set here, because like Close Combat Knockoff Earthquake basically kills every single Pokemon. I forget exactly why we were knockoff in this matchup over like Flare Blitz for the Steel Up, but there was a reason, something on the bench that didn't end up coming. Then we have our Azelf. We're actually a Nasty Plot set this time. We're Citrus Berry with Nasty Plot, Psyshock, Thunderbolt, and Dazzling Gleam. Hits this team very hard. If we can get some hazards, this is very scary. We're Citrus because after things like Slowking, Sludge Bomb, Suicune Scalds, even Draining Kisses from Comfey, and Scale Shots from Garchomp, I want to be able to stay out of range of that Comfey, which is really, really important. We can also live, you know, like 1 hit from like basically everything on this team, especially with that Citrus Berry, unless it's like Crunch, like banned Garchomp. We actually should live a hit from that thing too and set up on it. So there's a lot of setup opportunities here with Azelf to potentially, you know, come in and win the game. Citrus Berry seems a little odd, but it gives me a lot more setup opportunities than you would typically have on a team like this. Then we have a Lumberry Rillaboom. We're pretty offensive with Grassy Glide, Knockoff, U-Turn, and Taunt. We're Lumberry so that we can pivot into that Suicune and not worry about getting burned at least 1 time. We spread knockoffs with this thing and we U-turn around. That's basically going to be its job. It has Grassy Glide to revenge things like Garchomp if we need, Comfey if we need, and then obviously be able to break a Suicune sub. But realistically, this is a knock and U-turn bot this game, and it's just going to go down like that. Taunt can be really nice in, you know, niche situations, stopping a Celesteela from wanting to set up an Autotomize, because offensive Steela also does really well into me, provided like Zeraora gets chipped, so just gotta be careful. Then we have our Zeraora, rocking out with the Shuca Berry, Plasma Fist, Knockoff, Play Rough, and Bulk Up. We're a Bulk Up set this week. Honestly, I really thought about going Weakness Policy on this set, because I'll live an Earthquake under Terrain, you know, especially after a Bulk Up, or I'll just live an Earthquake with a Bulk Up anyways, and then getting that Weakness Policy boost could have been clutch for Garchomp with Play Rough. But the reason I didn't end up doing that is because I also wanted this to check Celesteela well. And with, you know, Shuka Berry, we can kind of take like one Earthquake from Garchomp and then like take an Earthquake from Selly under terrain or something like that. So I figured Shuka was a little bit more multi-purpose. If you look at this thing's move pool, or this thing's coverage against this team, it goes absolutely crazy. We just have to chip down that Garchomp, and this Pokemon can 100% super win. Unless it's like a Silvally ground or grass, which we do have to be careful with, and we'll see that as we go. Then we have our Klefki here, rocking out with a pretty interesting set where Dazzling Gleam, Spikes, Toxic, and Imprison. Very interesting to see Imprison here, because there's not really anything on my opponent's team that it really helps with, but in the builder at the very least, I don't know if you guys realize this from my team builder or my draft part of this video, I have no removal on my team. Besides, this Blaziken get defog? Hold on, let's check. Pretty sure Blaziken might get defog. Yeah, Blaziken gets defog, but I'm not running defog Blaziken. So I have no removal on this team, right? And Imprison, what it allowed me to do is I really thought a Selgor was going to come, and I really thought it was going to try and set up a million spikes. I wanted to be able to imprison that, set up spikes of my own, put myself in a good spot. Toxic is to stop things like Comfey from setting up and winning. Same thing with the Suicune before it gets behind a sub, because I don't think Restock really ever comes in this matchup. I don't think Restock's very good. I think if it's Calm Mind, it's sub Calm Mind, Scald Protect. It also helps with Garchomp and things like that if it does get set up and out of hand, and, you know, we need to chip it down into range of a Grassy Glide or something of the sort. So, yeah, I definitely like Klefki here. Pretty solid Pokemon. Fizdef can take a hit from Garchomp as well, as long as it's not boosting item. Then we have our Assault Vest Guzzlord here with Knockoff Heavy Slam, Flamethrower, and Draco Meteor. Actually really good coverage in this game. We can live a Comfey Draining Kiss and blow it up with a Brave Heavy Slam, which is obviously really cool. This also checks Glow-King very well. And then Draco Flamethrower kind of hits everything else. This also soft checks Suicune as long as it doesn't burn us. We can knock off its lefties, which is always a death sentence for Suicune as well. So that's obviously great. Alright, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. They are going to lead off with their Slowking as I lead off my Klefki. I don't really have use for my Klefki now that there is no a Selgor here, and I see no removal outside of Silvally, and, you know, if it is defog, Silvally will be able to force that out, get offensive momentum, things like that. Other than that, I kind of want to get up as many spikes as humanly possible, as we do see a Fire Blast come out from this Glow-King right here. I'm going to pivot out on the second one as a Future Sight comes out. Good play by my opponent, but I just get a knockoff here on the Silvally Fighting right here. It's going to take the knock, but the Future Sight plus the Silvally Fighting kind of puts me in a tough spot because I obviously can't leave in my Guzzlord, which means something's going to have to take this multi-attack plus the Future Sight. I decided it's time for Klefki to go down. I wish I could have gotten up that second spike, but it's not the end of the world. This thing is going to go ahead and just multi-attack and take me down. I get out into my Azelf though, and it's Nasty Plot in time. I'm able to set up this Nasty Plot, and I'll be able to really break through this team. I click Psyshock. This is a Fizdef Slowking. If it was Spuddef or not Fizdef, it like offensive. It had a chance to die after a spike to that, but regardless, I knew I would always be able to 2-hit KO it, and even if it attacks me, it doesn't kill me. Provided I dodge a Sludge Bomb poison, I'm going to be in an incredible position. Like, an incredible position right here. Sludge Bomb does pop. It does pop my Citrus Berry, but it also gets the poison. And you'll see how good of a position I would have been in. At 74% at +2, this Pokemon would have nuked through this team. Thunderbolt plus Psyshock absolutely cooked. Same thing with Dazzling Gleam for that Garchomp. We would have been in an incredible position. And there's not really a likely Scarfer on this team. I don't think Chomp is going to be Scarf in this game, which meant my Azelf would have minimum gotten 1, if not won this game from here. But the poison's really going to make that tough, you know, to be able to happen right here. I do click Thunderbolt because I saw that it was Fizdef. I knew I would be able to knock it out. Garchomp wasn't going to come out. Celesteela might come out to try and stall poison turns, but regardless, we take out the Glow-King there, which is nice. Selly's going to come out here. It does click Protect in my face, and this is what I mean, the poison being so big, is it allows this team to really, really stall out my Azelf. Comfey's going to come out. I really wanted to click Psyshock here, but I just get off a big Thunderbolt. I don't quite take it out, but I am going to pivot out here into my Rillaboom, knowing that I can, you know, save my Azelf for a strong hit later or something of the sorts. Maybe that does kind of come back to end up biting me in the ass a little bit. As Selly's going to come out, I do just click Grassy Glide as I'm kind of forced to, unfortunately. I click on Knock Off the next turn because I don't think Flying Move is super freeing to me. I live 1 defensive Air Slash regardless, and we saw, you know, leftovers kind of, you know, telegraphing this is a bulkier set, and getting rid of this thing's leftovers are going to be very big for the rest of my team winning this game. Leech Seed is going to try and come out on my switch out. I'm going to go ahead and just U-turn this next turn. Try and pivot out into something that can do some damage. We're going to go into our Blaziken and take a strong Air Slash, which is a bit unfortunate. I kind of tunneled on like a Heavy Slam coming out, but it's all good. I'm just going to click Close Combat here. It covers the Garchomp. Does a ton of damage to it, which sucks because my Blaziken dies, right, in just one attack. It takes 49, 40% or whatever it was. But because of that, I'm going to put myself in a pretty good position to be able to get out and, pick a KO. Plus, this Garchomp is very low to Spike. It has no leftovers recovery. My Zeraora, despite me being down right now, is in an incredible position to win this game. Another reason I knocked earlier, too, is because potentially we'll call on the Selly for my Zera. Would have been nice. Protect's going to come out here as I just click Dazzling Gleam, which is pretty darn unfortunate. Protect on everything, and they end up getting the double here. I click Thunderbolt anyways, expecting Celesteela pivot. But yeah, that was a tough one right there. Because of the Protect on this thing, Fire Blast is going to be able to come out pretty freely. I believe I just click Knock Off because I know Knock Off into Glide will knock this thing out, and Knock Off into Glide will also mean I don't die to Rocky Helmet the next turn. So we're able to do so right there, which is awesome. Comfey is going to come out. I do have to sack off my Rillaboom right here, and it is faster than me based on his speed investment because I didn't really invest any speed. And I'm in a tough spot. I kind of have to go Guzzlord right here, but that's okay because Heavy Slam is pretty darn free at this point, right? And I can just kind of flamethrower into the Selly and put myself in a good spot. I know I can live 2 of these. I just click Draco the next turn, which is, again, putting myself in a good position. I get an attack boost. I can always just click Knock Off or Heavy Slam into something else. Comfey is going to come out next. It is going to pick me off with this Draining Kiss, which is a bit unfortunate. I believe that wasn't a roll. But from here, I'm in a good spot. I get out into my Zeraora, and looking at this Comfey, it was very offensive. It was like leaning Specs territory. It was at least modest Pixie Plate, but it could have potentially even been like Specs if I'm remembering the rolls correctly. And I knew I could always bulk up, live 1, get off a big Plasma Fist. Depending on his bulk, this was a roll, but I knew I could live 2 after this. Maybe 1 more bulk up would have been the play, but it's all good. I'm able to kill this thing with another Plasma Fist right here as it gets back up to 40. And from here, I should win the game. I know I kill Selly from 73. Suicune comes out. I know I kill this thing too unless it's Wakan. But it shows off the E-Speed. You can see me kind of losing my mind in the chat right there. I talked to him after that was actually a cursed Suicune. Now, do I think that was a good bring into my team? I personally don't. Obviously, there's a little bit of cope involved. I personally don't think it was a great bring, but it super ended up working out here because the E-Speed won the game, and we dropped really early in the tournament this time. It's really unfortunate because I feel like this was like one of my best teams in all of these tournament circuits and things like that, and I feel like I played well in all of these games. I wanted to upload this one regardless of it being very short because I've uploaded all my other runs, and I want to show that sometimes you have a tournament where you think you play well and things happen, shit just doesn't work out, and that was this game. I end up losing to E-Speed Suicune, which is pretty darn funny, but I think I played to the best of my abilities. They got me with the prep right there, and the poison really put me in a bad spot. I think Azelf was primed to just like put an irreparable hole in this team. I would have been able to live the Comfey hit from like 70 or whatever and just nuked it with Psyshock, and then from there I think I just kill like almost every single Pokemon. But regardless, it was definitely a really fun run, and yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It'll be a while before we have another tournament run up on the channel, at least for Smogon. Smogon Tour Scene, they're waiting for the Sword and Shield one to wrap up right now. It's like getting into its later rounds right now. I think it's like round 5, which is like in top 32 territory or something like that. After that, there will be a like midsummer, Sword or Scarlet and Violet run, and I'll definitely be playing in that one if I don't absolutely tank and I make it to brackets. You guys can expect a video from that. But I'm also playing in the GBA tour that's coming out soon. I'm drafting for that one. I'm 2 picks deep. I'll give you guys a little heads up. I got a Terra Bundler, which is going to be awesome, alongside like a really low-tiered Zarude. So my team's already looking pretty cool 2 rounds in. I'm hoping I do well in that. I can upload that for you guys as well. But yeah, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys in the next one. Later.